When you're watching this video, it's going to be about a month away from week 0 college football, which means it is time to get into our annual college fantasy football rankings, starting with the quarterback position. My name is Matt Hicks, the FF educator, joined here by John Lobb, the Gridiron Scholar. We're going to be breaking down John's top 24 college fantasy football quarterback rankings here. And without further ado, let's jump right in to number 24 from Jackson State, transferring into Colorado. It's Shedeur Sanders. John?
I had to make sure I wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid, because the Buffaloes only won one game last year. DeQuan Sanders came over. He's taken over the program, and his son Shedeur came with him from Jackson State. I've watched a little bit. I don't have a full game tape of Shedeur, but I did watch some of his highlights from Jackson State. I've broken down the numbers. He was really productive, and I did watch him in the spring game for Colorado. He was 16 of 19 for 234 yards and 3 touchdowns, Matt. I believe he's going to be a fantasy playmaker. He's available after the 125th pick in college fantasy football drafts with huge upside. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I like Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, college fantasy football, you got to lean into risk. That's how you get value. So, with the quarterback position especially, that's a good place to start. Now, our next guy here, number 23, is John Rhys Plumlee, quarterback out of UCF. We have a little bit more track record on this player.
Oh, absolutely, my friend. He's been around for a while. If you haven't been playing college fantasy football, or if you don't necessarily watch all the teams like we do, and he actually has 1,000-yard season on his resume, Matt, at Mississippi. He is a real dual threat quarterback, and I will say this: he's actually better with his legs than he is throwing the football. So when you're looking at a player who can get you over 700 yards rushing, double-digit touchdowns on the ground, and he's good with the passing of the football. He's not great. I've read a lot of things. He's working on it throughout the offseason. He wants to be a more proficient passer, but I like John Rhys Plumlee, Matt. He's a great value at number 23 on the board.
Now, one of the big things for folks who might not be as familiar with college fantasy football is understanding the important group of 5 players, right? So sometimes, John, we dig deep, and we're going to talk about here at number 22, Chevan Cordeiro out of San Jose State.
He's definitely overlooked, and Cordeiro started at the University of Hawaii. And if you paid any attention to Hawaii, they really kind of hit the skids recently. And last year, Cordeiro transferred. He stayed in the Mountain West, but he came from Hawaii to San Jose State. And Matt, his passing, they were the 25th team in the nation throwing the football, averaging 272 yards per game. Now, they weren't the most efficient because they were ranked 71 in points scored. So they need to be more productive near the goal line and get the ball into the end zone. But they clearly throw the football all around the field. He's coming off an ADP around the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. Long track record of success, and he can score points with his legs. I like the San Jose quarterback a lot.
Now, here's a much more well-known name, and that is Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers. John, Steve Sarkisian is known for that year 2 in the offense, right? The quarterback takes a big leap forward. We have a 5-star profile here. It sounds like you're in on Quinn Ewers being productive for college fantasy purposes too.
Matt, there is so much talent around Quinn Ewers. You mentioned Steve Sarkisian in the second year Quinn Ewers' second year in Steve Sarkisian's system. But you have Xavier Worthy, you have A.D. Mitchell, Jordan Whittington, and tight end Jatavian Sanders. They are loaded at the skilled positions. He's also, Matt, his ADP right now is over 140. I have him in the top 21. I have him at 21. I really like him. He's almost costing you he's like your 4th quarterback, Matt. And his ceiling is so incredibly high for Texas. I'm still a believer that he can be a very productive CFF quarterback.
All right, coming in here at number 20, John, is our spotlight for the first group of quarterbacks. And that's going to be Tulane quarterback Michael Pratt, who really took the group of five in college fantasy football world by storm last year. You're expecting him to carry that momentum forward into the 2023 season.
Absolutely, my friend. Michael Pratt is a legitimate NFL prospect. I think I have him at like the top 12. I'm very interested to see where he goes this season in his development and in his progression as a passer. But from a college fantasy football standpoint, Matt, he gets it done with his legs, he gets it done with his arms. He's coming off an ADP in the 70s right now. Michael Pratt is a terrific second quarterback on your college fantasy football.
All right, John, coming in at number 19, you got to lean into a little bit of risk here, but I think the reward is well worth it. Going with Kyle McCord, quarterback out of Ohio State. My presumption, John, with this ranking is that you, along with many others, are expecting him to win out the quarterback battle for the Buckeyes officially in fall camp.
I do think he's going to win the battle. He's been on the campus long of the quarterbacks, the longest period of time. Ryan Day is kind of loyal to the seniority, the upperclassmen. And Matt, he's throwing the football to Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Ibuka. And they're still loaded. Those are the two starters, potential first round draft picks in the NFL. Kyle McCord is good enough to get the ball out of his hands, get it into those playmakers. I don't have him in the top 12 because I can't put a first year Buckeye quarterback there. And the key, Matt, unlike the recent quarterbacks at Ohio State, Kyle McCord does not score a lot of points with his legs. I have him projected at like 50 yards rushing, which really caps his ceiling. But he has a ceiling of 40 touchdown passes if he hits for the Buckeyes.
All right, John, recapping our first group of six quarterbacks here. It's going to be Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado, John Rice Plumlee out of UCF, Chevron Cordero out of San Jose State, Quinn Ewers out of Texas, Michael Pratt out of Tulane, and then rounding out the group here is Kyle McCord out of Ohio State. John, all of these players are guys that you're going to be targeting in the mid to late rounds of your college fantasy football drafts here, whether you're playing in pure CFF or C2C formats. All come with a little bit of risk, but absolutely possess that large upside that we love to see. So let's go ahead and jump into our next group of guys here, starting at number 18 with Brennan Armstrong, now of North Carolina State.
If you're investing in Brennan Armstrong, and I like him at the value, he's coming off past ADP in the hundreds. Why I like him is Robert Anae is the offensive coordinator for the Wolfpack. When Anae was at Virginia in 2021, Brennan Armstrong went absolutely nuts. Anae last year was at Syracuse. And he ended up, Garrett Schrader was very productive for the Orange. Brennan Armstrong we'll just say kindly, was not very good at Virginia. He reunites with Robert Anae, and I believe that Brennan Armstrong is going to be very productive for the Wolfpack in 2023. But again, as you mentioned, you have to embrace a little bit of risk that Armstrong goes back to the player he was before.
You haven't truly lived your best college fantasy football life if you're not sweating out some action on Tuesday nights, all right? And the best way to do that this year, John, is with the quarterback DeQuan Finn of Toledo. And if you're not familiar, folks, Toledo's expected to lead the MAC, and DeQuan Finn is a big part of that.
Oh, DeQuan Finn is awesome, Matt, for the Rockets. And there's not much better than Mac action. He is a dual threat stud last year. He accounted for 32 total touchdowns. He completed nearly 60% of his passes, Matt. He gets it done every way possible. I believe this is his fifth year on campus. The Rockets are loaded. I love DeQuan Finn of Toledo.
One of the best stories from the 2022 college football season were the Kansas Jayhawks, led by quarterback Jalen Daniels. Now he's coming back with another season, a built up roster, more support. I think Lance Leopold is going to put him in a pretty good situation to produce. And John, coming in at number 16 here, it looks like you feel the same.
Yeah, I really like Jalen Daniels. And go back to the first 4 games of the 2022 season, Matt. He averaged nearly 40 points per game. But then he got hurt. And when he got hurt, he suffered a separated shoulder. He came back. He's a gamer, and he probably came back too early, Matt. And it was obvious on the field. The competition got better, and opponents were more prepared for the Jayhawks offense. But when in the final bowl game, he went nuts. He had over 500 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. The ceiling for Jalen Daniels is out of this world, Matt. And one thing that I like about, they have 10 returning starters at Kansas, and 90% of the offensive production is returning for Coach Leopold. I think the Jayhawks are a real good position to be fantasy gold.
Coming in at number 15 is our next spotlight here with Tennessee quarterback Joe Milton. Now, John, this has been a long journey to this starter role for Joe Milton, but he finds himself in one of the best offenses for production in the nation. And I'm guessing that's why you want to dig into him a little bit more.
You know, Matt, I'm a huge Josh Heupel guy. It has been amazing to watch the Volunteers, and that offense over the last 2 years. I was in on Hendon Hooker and the Volunteers last year. However, I get the ceiling of Hendon Hooker, but I am a little lower than most. His ADP right now, Matt, is around 50, which is late 4th round, early 5th round. I don't have a lot of Milton, even though I see the ceiling, because I look back. Remember, he started at Michigan for 3 games and was benched. And then he was originally supposed to be the starter at Tennessee, but Hendon Hooker ended up with the job. So I think there's a floor there that people aren't discussing or thinking about at that ADP. But I do love the ceiling. He just goes off the board before I'm willing to get a share of Joe Milton.
Number 14 here is a name that's been around for a while. He's going to be the starting quarterback at Texas Tech this year. It's Tyler Shuck. And John, if he can command that offense for the full season, he's certainly going to have the ability to put up big numbers.
Oh, Matt, I've been watching Tyler Shuck since he ended up at Oregon, and he was replacing Justin Herbert. He ended up now he's at the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And if you love college football, you know the name Zach Kittley. He's the offensive coordinator for Texas Tech. He was at Houston Baptist in Western Kentucky, and he coordinated that incredible Bailey Zappi season for the Hilltoppers in 2021. He goes to Texas Tech, and I was all excited. Texas Tech, they didn't have the talent per se that to orchestrate Kittley's system. I do believe that Coach McGuire has it now, and their second year in the system. I love Tyler Shuck if he stays healthy. His problem in the past has been injuries. He's coming off the board about the same time as Joe Milton. But if you like Shuck and you believe in that air raid offense, his ceiling is 45 touchdowns with maybe 50. That's how good this offense might be.
I don't think folks are talking enough about number 13 here in our quarterback college fantasy football rankings, and that's Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik. Now with Garrett Riley in town, really amping up what that offense can be, in some really underrated weapons there along the boundary too for Klubnik. I'm excited about him, John, and clearly you are too.
Yeah, Matt, I don't know if I'm overly exuberant because I still have to believe in Dabo Swinney and the Clemson program. I know they took a step backwards last year, but Swinney addressed the problem. He hired offensive coordinator Garrett Riley from TCU. And last we saw, Garrett Riley made Max Duggan a CFF star. So I have every bit of confidence that Cade Klubnik, who was a 5-star prospect, Matt, and he was going to be the guy. I do believe that Garrett Riley's going to get the best out of Klubnik. I have a lot of Klubnik because he falls late and he's a dual threat quarterback. I like him a lot, Matt.
All right, let's take a moment to recap now. Coming in at number 18 was Brennan Armstrong, now of North Carolina State. Number 17, DeQuan Finn of Toledo. 16, Jalen Daniels of Kansas. 15, Joe Milton of Tennessee. Number 14, Tyler Shuck from Texas Tech. And coming in at number 13 is Cade Klubnik for Clemson. Now, John, let's get into the top 12 here, starting with Dillon Gabriel, the quarterback out of Oklahoma.
Matt, we've been watching Dillon Gabriel for a long time. He had played 3 years with UCF, and last year he played with Oklahoma, and he made the jump from the G5 to the Power 5. And Dillon Gabriel was very, very good for the Sooners. Now, fantasy is different than reality, right? The Sooners didn't have a great year, and when your standard is Lincoln Riley and Heisman winners, you might not realize how good Dillon Gabriel was. He was essentially the second best quarterback in the Big 12, and he was the offensive newcomer of the year. I do believe that the Sooners right the ship this year under Brett Venables. I believe they'll be better. Second year Dillon Gabriel is in the system, Matt. I think they take another step forward. Dillon Gabriel is a great, great value around pick 100 in your CFF drafts.
With number 11, we're going back to the group of 5. We're going to go with Curtis Rourke out of Ohio.
You got to be careful with Rourke, but everyone's been looking for injury news. He had the ACL injury late in the season last year, Matt. He participated in the spring drills. All reports that I can find is the coaching staff is really optimistic that Rourke is going to be on the field and healthy by early in the season, if not week 1. And why I think this is important, Ohio did not bring in another quarterback, Matt. Coaches they give us clues, right? If Ohio brought in a transfer from a Power 5, or if Ohio brings in another young man to play quarterback, then we know maybe Ohio doesn't have confidence. But you look at that depth chart, Matt, and it's Rourke's depth chart right now. So if the coaching staff believes in him, from the reports that I can get, they look positive, and Rourke is a monster on the field for fantasy production. Let's watch him in training camp, but I have him at number 12 right now, or 11 right now.
Coming in at number 10 here is our next spotlight, John. This is my man, Jaden Daniels, the quarterback out of LSU.
Matt, I am all in with you this season. And you and I have been talking about Jaden Daniels, I think since 2019, when he was at Arizona State and he burst on the scene as a freshman. He had that 17-2 touchdown to interception ratio. Very impressive young man very early. Unfortunately, if you know the Sun Devils, Matt, that program fell apart around Jalen Daniels. And he took a step backwards at Arizona State. I mean, there's not much else I can say. And he transfers to LSU. And I'll be the first to admit, Matt, I was shocked when he went to LSU. I was like, oh my God, he's going up to the greatest division conference in the nation. Matt, he was unbelievable his first year in Brian Kelly's offense. I mean, what is there to say? They won the SEC West. Now, they did get beat by Georgia, but it was Georgia back-to-back champs in the championship game. Jalen Daniels, I love him this year. Excuse me. And the best part, Matt, he's coming off the board around pick 60. He is a little inconsistent, but I'm hoping he gets that straightened out the second year. He had some games with like 50 points scoring, and then he had some games with under 20. But if he shows more consistency second year, I am in love with Jaden Daniels.
Perhaps nobody's hotter right now than the Florida State Seminoles in terms of the preseason hype train. And coming in at number 9 is going to be their quarterback, Jordan Travis.
You know, I almost starting to get a little worried because I'm a big Mike Norvell fan. And I've liked him since he was at Memphis, and I've liked their running backs that he's put in the NFL. And we're going to eventually talk about the great running back the Seminoles have. But I really like Florida State. But now, Matt, the train is rolling down the tracks. And in the first game of the year, they have LSU in a revenge game for the Tigers. So if they lose that game, will they stay on track? I think the talent's there. I believe in Mike Norvell. And more importantly, I believe in Jordan Travis. He is the ignition of this offense. We're going to look at the running game. They're going to be good running the football. But Travis is a dual threat quarterback who makes it happen with his legs and arms. And Florida State has brought in more receivers. I'm not sure how NFL great they are. We're going to find that out. But they have a lot of playmakers at the college level, Matt.
Coming in at number 8 is the worst kept secret in college fantasy football, and that is dual threat quarterback out of Duke, Riley Leonard. John, folks have caught on to his production last year, and we can expect more of the same from the Duke offense in 2023.
I believe so. Mike Elko took over the program last year. Believe it or not, Riley Leonard wasn't even supposed to be the starter, Matt, at this time last year. The Blue Devils went into training camp, not sure who their quarterback was going to be. Riley Leonard impressed the coaching staff, Matt. He won the job throughout the summer, and he was just one of the best players in all of college fantasy football. He passed for nearly 3,000 yards. He had 20 touchdowns. He rushed for 699 yards and 13 touchdowns. And Matt, look at the Blue Devils. They don't have a running back I like. He's still going to probably be their goal line guy. I love Riley Leonard, and he's getting NFL draft buzz. I'm not as convinced as some people, but he's going to be one of those players I'm watching to see him develop, and I love him in college fantasy football.
John, coming in at number 7 is going to be KJ Jefferson out of the University of Arkansas. John, we are co-managing a Campus to Canton roster, and on the CFF side, you made sure to make Jefferson a cornerstone of the college side of our roster. So talk to us about the Arkansas playmaker.
I do believe I also drafted Jalen Daniels on that team, if I remember correctly, right? So one of the goals when I put together that roster is I want quarterbacks who we might get NFL draft capital out of. I like both of them. I'm very high on KJ Jefferson. Now, his ratings, Matt, if you look around and you look at different scouts and rating services, some have him outside the top 20. Some have him inside the top 4. He's all over the place. I'm believing from college fantasy football, there's no doubt in my mind. He's a dual threat stud. He had over 2,600 yards throwing, 24 touchdowns last year. He ended up with 640 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns. What I like about him, Matt, he only threw 5 interceptions. He's 6'3", 246. I think Arkansas is sneaky good this year in the SEC. Now, they have a tough schedule. Everyone does if you're not Alabama, Georgia, and LSU. But I do think they're going to be very competitive. I love KJ Jefferson.
All right, let's go ahead and recap once again. Coming in at number 12 is Dylan Gabriel out of Oklahoma. Number 11 is Curtis Rourke from Ohio. Number 10 is Jaden Daniels of LSU. Number 9, Jordan Travis, Florida State. Number 8, Riley Leonard out of Duke. And number 7, KJ Jefferson out of Arkansas. So let's go ahead. Let's get into the big guns here, starting with Drake May, the quarterback out of the University of North Carolina, coming in at number 6.
Matt, I really wanted to rank him in the top 3. But as I started looking at North Carolina, they have some significant turnover in this offense. One, their offense coordinator, Chip Lungo, is now with Wisconsin, so he's no longer with the team. They also lost Josh Downs. I believe he was a third-round pick of the Indianapolis Colts, so he's gone, and he's been their number 1 playmaker for the last 2 years. So they brought in some good people, Nate McCallum from Georgia Tech, Devontae Walker from Kent State. But the new Chip Lindsey is the new offensive coordinator. Mac Brown's still in charge, and Mac Brown's put together good offenses. He's still the big guy, but you lose a little bit of consistency, right? Familiarity with the system. I had to lower Drake May just a little bit. Because remember Will Levis last year at this time? He was ranked so high. People were so positive about Kentucky. These things happen at the college level, right? That the turnover is so great. So I have Drake. I think he's a great player still, but he's number 6 on the board.
All right, coming in at number 5 here is somebody who I have loved watching for a few years now of my UTSA Roadrunners. That's going to be quarterback Frank Harris.
Matt, go get Frank Harris, everyone. His ADP right now is late second round. I know they lost to Kari Franklin. I get it. He was their number 1, but they still have DeCorian Clark, Joshua Cephas. They have a great running game. Coach Jeff Traylor is a really good coach, everyone. Frank Harris came back for his 6th year. Now, my only challenge is he was hurt, I think, the first 2 or 3 years pretty significantly. So this is really his 3rd year as a starter for the Roadrunners. But Matt, 6'0", 205 pounds. He throws a really nice football. He's a dual threat quarterback. I absolutely love him. Last year, he averaged 29 fantasy points per game. Frank Harris is a stud.
Coming in at number 4 here is Michael Penix Jr., a huge 2022 season for Washington after transferring in from Indiana. And most folks, John, are expecting him to just build on that foundation that he set last year with some really nice wide receiver weapons to help him out.
Matt, if we've been doing our Devy studies and we're breaking down talent, when you look at Romeo Dunze and Jalen McMillan on the outside, Matt, there's just it's similar to Ohio State. They're not the Buckeyes. I mean, no one's Marvin Harrison and Emeka Ibuka. But these 2 young men are probably day 2 draft picks, right? They're probably going to go off in that 33 to 40 range, right? I think. So they've been studs at the college level. Michael Penix, when he's healthy, which is a question mark, but he was healthy all last year. And when he has time in the pocket, Matt, I think he may have the best, prettiest deep ball in the entire nation. I think he throws that ball outside the hash marks 40 yards down the field as well as any quarterback in college football. Now, he's not a great off platform. He's good, but he's not great. And he's not someone who's going to gain a ton of yards with his legs, but he's mobile. He knows how to buy time in the pocket. The numbers are silly, Matt. The Huskies led the nation in passing with 369 yards per game. They were 7th in scoring at 39.7. And did I tell you that we didn't mention it? They play in the Pac-12. Love Michael Penix.
And I love our number 3 quarterback here playing for our Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. That's going to be Austin Reed. John, the Western Kentucky offense is a college fantasy football dream, and Austin Reed is once again going to be able to take hold of the reins of that offense.
Oh my God, Jan, we broke down Malachi Corley, the receiver, on the last Devy show we did as one of the underrated wide receivers. So hopefully you're going to watch some Western Kentucky film this year, everyone, because Austin Reed and the Hilltoppers are one heck of a fun offense to watch. They were number 2, Matt, behind Washington in passing at 352 yards per game. They were number 14 in points scored. Now, I love Austin Reed. I think he's 40 touchdowns in the bank throwing the football. I don't think he'll Bailey Zappi, who had, 62? I don't think he'll get that high, my friend. But I'll take 48 in the bank. The only reason I don't have him in the top 3, top 3, I think. He doesn't get, or top 2. He doesn't have the rushing yards. Matt, he just doesn't give you enough with his legs. And we know we love him in the NFL fantasy football. But in college fantasy football, it is gold. So that's the only reason I have him at number 3.
All right. Coming in at number 2 is Oregon quarterback Bo Nix.
Hey, another Pac-12. Matt, I'm not going to get any sleep once again. It's just going to happen. There's too much talent. It is too fun out on the West Coast this year. And what I'm really kind of happy about, the narrative at Auburn has seemed to go away. People realize and are looking at Bo Nix entirely different now, Matt. He's getting buzz in the NFL scouting community. Matt, he was great last year. He was unbelievable. Do you know he almost completed 72% of his passes? 72%. That's insanity. But, excuse me, the thing I love most, 510 yards rushing. I don't think he'll get 14 rushing touchdowns a game, but he should have, or on the season, but he should have like 8. Matt, I'm cool if he has 8 rushing touchdowns with 450 yards. Bo Nix is awesome. He's a first-round pick in college fantasy football.
And John, our number 1 college fantasy football quarterback is none other than the Heisman Trophy reigning champion, Caleb Williams, out of USC.
3 quarterbacks in the Pac-12 in our top 4. Think about that, Matt. The Pac-12 is, from a college fantasy perspective, is awesome this year. They are going to be fun. I'm not going to say too much about Caleb Williams. Everyone watching knows he's the Heisman winner. He's just simply incredible. Lincoln Riley has had too much success at the quarterback position, Matt. He's a tremendous coach. The offense is incredible, and Caleb Williams looks like the number 1 pick in next year's draft, and I think he's a top pick in college fantasy football. Better than Marvin Harrison, better than Quinshon Judkins. Go with Caleb Williams and get your running backs and receivers later.
John, and the top pick for all your CFF Devi Dynasty knowledge is, of course, the Rookie Big Board. You're watching this video. Make sure to subscribe and head on over to patreon.com/Rookie Big Board for more information. But before we finish up the episode, I want to make sure to point out, John, you can see I'm wearing the CFF Kings Classic shirt that is coming up. It's a draft of experts from around the CFF world, but it's more than that, John. On top of that, we use the draft, and you really are the champion here for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital as part of the CFF Kings Classic. So why don't you talk a little bit about that here?
Yeah, I got it from Scott Fish, and I wanted there to be a charity component to what we're doing at the CFF Kings Classic when we go out to Canton, Ohio. I'm going out for the 3rd year in a row. Last year, we raised $1,650 for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Right now, you can look in the link below in our chat, or you can go to my Twitter account, GridironSkull91, and there's a link to donate to St. Jude's Classic. And if everyone who watches this just made a donation of $3 to $5, we could make such a difference in young kids' lives on cancer research and helping these families. The biggest thing, if you don't know enough about St. Jude's, they help the entire family when their child has cancer. So please, if you have anything to spare, everything counts. $3 to $5 for all our viewers. We'd be so happy and appreciate it. More importantly, the kids.
And we'll have that link in the episode description. Make sure to subscribe to get more CFF content. We have plenty more heading down the pipe for you. Get ready for a great college football season. And as always, we appreciate you checking out this episode of the Rookie Big Board.